On today's video, we're going to talk about the first and second generation FJ Cruisers, what the differences are. Also, we bring it back to the shop, we get a oil change, a third drop and fill of the transmission fluid, and we put rear shocks in. After that, my 2012 Lexus ES 350 with 138,000 miles. Why did it need $10,000 worth of engine work? Stay tuned. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Mike the Baldadonis, and I buy and sell cars as a hobby, and I bring you guys along with me showing the pros and cons of each vehicle I buy. I do travel videos throughout New England, and I talk about my life experiences. All right guys, let's get into it. I'm with my friend Dave. He helps me out with cutting my grass, plowing my driveway, and he is a car enthusiast himself. He has an amazing collection in the past few years at such a young age. So right now he's driving me around so I can get some cool drone shots, some Insta360 clips, and talk to you guys about the differences between the 2007 to 2009 FJ Cruiser. I'm going to call that the first gen, and the second generation from 2010 to 2014. All right, so I could talk about these because I've owned both. I had a 2007 FJ Cruiser I bought from the original owner with 315,000 miles. It had a 6-speed, and I loved that truck. I had it for about 9 months. I sold it. 2 years later, I bought it back. I did several videos with that as well. I sold it after 8 months, and then I bought this 2012 from the original owner with 249,000 miles. Currently it has 253,000 miles. All right, so these engines are 4.0s. The first generation had single variable timing, 239 horsepower. The second engine was redesigned and it had 260 horsepower, dual variable timing. The 2007 to 2009 needed premium fuel, while the 2010 to 2014 was regular fuel. The 2007 to 2009 had 5.5 quarts of oil versus the 6.4 quarts of oil in the 2010 to the 2014. The oil filter in the 2007 to 2009s were on top of the engine. The 2010 to 2014 oil filter is underneath the engine. The 2007 to 2009 had an 8.0 rear end. 2010 to 2014 had an 8.2 rear end. It beefed that up a little bit. But the 2007 that I had was 6-speed and it was constant 4-wheel drive. You could not get it out of all-wheel drive or 4-wheel drive. While this is an automatic, and you can go into your 4-wheel drive when needed. The 2010 to 2014 had an upgraded stereo system with Bluetooth and USB ports. The 2013 to 2014 had an off-road crawl control. 2010 to 2014 also had slightly better turning radius for improved steering. Okay, so my overall impressions of both vehicles. I think the 6-speed was much more fun to drive. Did it consume more gas? It did. Was it more fun to drive in traffic? Fuck no. I'd rather have the automatic. But overall, if I was to buy another one, I would buy another 6-speed just because it's more fun to drive, and that's just my preference. Okay, so we're gonna take this back to the shop. We're gonna do a oil change, the third drop and fill of the transmission fluid, and we're gonna put rear shocks in. But before we do, I bought this from the original owner, like I said, with 249,000 miles. When I bought it, I went through the whole truck, so I have a laundry list. So what did I do when I bought the truck? Well, I put brand new tires on. I had the frame repaired from rust. I tinted out the windows. I put LED lights in the grille. I did front struts and springs, a serpentine belt and pulleys. The first oil change, I got the car inspected. Front and rear axles fluid change, transfer case fluid change, transmission tune-up with the filter. I went and did a second transmission fluid change, drop and fill. I protected the frame with wool wax and the power steering line. All right, so let's take to the shop. Let's do the oil change, the third drop and fill, and the shocks.
She's all mad. She's like, how do you lose 4 pounds? And you don't. Reasons like that, which makes a big difference. So I'll throw in just a smidge over 3 quarts. We'll be good. I'm sure, basically, we can.
I never experienced it.
Girls were younger, and you could have an older, and my girl.
Flippering.
Like, what do you mean what you do? He's like, stop working. And he works on it like he doesn't came back.
Look at that.
What do you want? You know, so I'm like, just let me know. He's like, okay, yeah, no problem.
I don't know. How come I don't trust him?
He's like, he brought me batteries, deep cycle batteries in it, and it's charged. Figured out that how much of the science to it, you know. There's a racetrack gutted, and he breaks out the track.
Avocado, eggs, some kind of meat in my workout.
You know, and unfortunately, you know, and then, don't worry, Mike, I'll pull it out before it gets stuck. $530.
My favorite
Yeah.
for this vehicle. Go, 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 go. All right, so let's talk about my 2012 Lexus ES 350. Why did it need $10,000 worth of engine work? Well, I bought it from the second owner. He was 22 years old when he bought it. He had it until last year, and it had 137,000 miles. At 121,000 miles, it needed head gaskets. Head gaskets is the reason why it needs $10,000 worth of work. Here in New England or any state that has salt on the road, that salt will get up to the engine and corrode the head gaskets. All right, so if you guys live in a state that has salt, open up the hood, look in the back of the engine. If you see coolant, then you know that your head gaskets are starting to leak. The engine, the transmission has to come out usually at one shot, and then the whole engine gets torn down. Everything gets put back together, and there's your $10,000 bill. So yes, the Lexus ES350 is one of the most reliable cars out there, but if you have salt on the road, wash down the engine, get some of that salt off, and hopefully you won't have head gasket issues. So when buying a vehicle such as the Lexus, it was very nice. It was clean, except for the interior. It had a little bit of wear and tear on the back of the headrest for some reason, and the console. So I had my friend Tom fix that, so let's take a look.
Some good schmutz on here. Yeah, that made a good video.
Yeah, it did.
It's kind of deep.
No, they do whatever.
Yeah. So instead of the leather clay, which is, you know, like the leather clay is awesome. I love the leather clay. Bonds pretty well. So I'm sure you recognize me by now. My name is Tommy from Mobile Repair Specialist. I service Southern New Hampshire dealerships doing interior repairs, but Mike brought me a fun one today. We did the armrest and the headrest in this Lexus. And so you may have noticed in the video we were running into a bit of an issue with the armrest. Specifically, there was a lot of oil buildup. Most likely whoever drove this kind of would just plant their arm down, and a lot of oil buildup got on the armrest. So I thought I had cleaned it enough with some alcohol, but when I went to put the paint on, it started peeling. So when that's the case, I have to go in and clean it a bit more thoroughly. And you may have noticed I used a torch as well, because oils, you know, in contact with fire will light up and dry out. So I dried that out real good, and then we used a much more heavy leather clay and sanded it down, and then painted over that to really ensure that that repair wouldn't peel up from all the oil. The headrest was pretty straightforward. I was able to use a new product on that, a fiberglass enforced leather clay. So I was able to do a few layers, let it dry, sand it down, and it came out real smooth. It actually came out a lot better than I thought it would. So yeah, now you can't tell that those years of buildup and oils were ever there. It came out nice and smooth.
All right, so I actually ended up selling that car right before Christmas. So guys, that's about it for these videos. I'm looking for some new cars to buy and start 2026 with a bunch of new cars, and that's about it for now. So until the next video, everybody, Baldadonis out.